All right. So thank you everyone for being here. I think we have a very, very exciting panel in front of us. Before we kick it off, let me just start with some introductions and then we'll dive right into the topic. So first of all, happy to be here. My name is Jean Ray. I'm one of the co-founders at Easy. We're an Estonian startup that is doing aggregation of things like Smart ID and whatever the local countries have so that you can sign your documents with Smart ID inside of platforms like DocuSign, which we're going to announce next week. On my left, we have Maris, who is a policy officer at the European Commission, and he's managing the development of the technical specifications of the European identity wallets, which we'll hear a lot about during this panel. Then we have Adrian, who's currently the director for market development at OneID, which is a little bit like the bank ID of the UK, and we're very interested to see how the private sector can play a role in the digital identity ecosystem, especially coming from someone who is a little bit outside of the EU sphere of influence. And finally, we have Lena, who is the managing director of our very own local e-Residency program, which, for those of you who don't know, is a government-issued digital identity that gives global entrepreneurs the remote access to the world's most digital country, Estonia. So 10 years have passed since Estonia launched the e-Residency program, putting the words digital identity at the forefront of people's consciousness and giving global entrepreneurs access to Estonia's digital services. Since that, a lot has changed. The world has kind of caught up with what Estonia was up to, and there's been a lot of political will in building a similar framework or similar frameworks for digital identity capabilities across Europe and also outside of Europe. One such innovation or one such regulatory innovation is the digital identity wallets, the EU digital identity wallets. And I'd like to start with you, Maris, and tell us a little bit from the Commission's point of view, where does this political project come from and how do you see the evolution of this landscape within Europe?
Thanks, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. So, this week, actually, on Monday, a new regulation was entered into force called the European Digital Identity Framework Regulation. One of the main things to expect from there is that in 6 months there will be some implementing acts developed by the Commission. Following from that date, in 2 years, all member states have the obligation to issue digital identity wallets. So these wallets will be essentially apps that do 3 things. They enable you to identify yourself online, they enable you to sign digitally, something that is quite common in Estonia already, but they also, in addition, they kind of use the same mechanism as a platform to digitize other credentials such as driving licenses, passports, ID cards, travel documents, vehicle registration, and so on. So the vision is that across borders, you can use the same mechanisms, the same eID means to identify yourself online anywhere in the EU. And in addition, kind of something that is an addition to what we currently already had regulatorily is these additional credentials to use also not only online but also offline. It's not there yet. There's a lot of work to do still, but also the good news is that there's a lot of opportunity to contribute to this work. So we have 3 tracks that I would like to highlight. That we have the technical specification, the current status that is going to be an input for these implementing acts online on GitHub that anybody can create discussions and issues on. We have the reference implementation open sourced available. And just earlier this month, we launched a call for proposals for with a budget of 20 million euros to pilot these projects. So if you search for digital identity wallets, then you'll find all these resources, and we're looking forward to anybody not just from the public sector, but
Yeah.
private sector to contribute.
And I think we'll get to use cases a little bit later in the conversation. But Lina, I want to bring it to you because the e-Residency launched 10 years ago with this big, ambitious vision of allowing anyone across the world to have a digital identity that they could use not only to interface with the government of Estonia, but between themselves to sign contracts proving who they were. Now it seems the world is catching up. How does the e-Residency program reinvent itself, or what are the next steps for e-Residency after this sort of 10 years?
After 10 years, we're at a place where we think that the promise of fully digital identity is actually at 99% because we still have the card. So in terms of the wallet, this all seems so promising, and we're super excited that this is coming. And for us, this opens up so many new doors, and we're hoping that our growth would really speed up after implementing EU wallet. So close to 50% of e-residents are from the EU. So for them, being able to use their own digital wallet to access our services is good, and it's coming, and it's great. But there's another 50% of our customer base who is not from the EU. And for them, using this Estonian digital wallet would actually open up additional opportunities. So they could use Estonian Digital Society's services, but they could also use, I don't know, if they found something interesting in Sweden, they could use our wallet to access digital services in Sweden. So we would add additional things to our offering, and there would be other benefits to e-residents using this wallet.
I love how you talk about our customers, because I think this is one of the fascinating things about the e-Residency program is that they look at themselves as a startup within the government. So you have this very user-centric approach of client acquisition and how long it takes to onboard someone. So it's your hope that also with this digital identity wallets, the onboarding process can be facilitated for the e-Residency program?
Yes, so we've calculated. So far at the moment, from the moment that you apply for e-Residency and until the moment that you become operational, it's approximately 2 months. It's too long. It needs to be shorter. So if we cut it down from 2 months to 2 weeks, we know that there would be 25% more companies created in Estonia. So there's a direct influence into the ecosystem. So we are truly behind this, and we're hoping that Estonia will find its like the boldness to leapfrog again, like just to be in the forefront of developing this wallet, so that we can do that.
Very cool. Just quick show of hands of the ones in the audience. Who of you is an e-resident? All right.
Nice.
Nice. Very cool. So customer base is present. Very cool. Adrian, to you, the UK is a little bit on the sidelines of the digital identity wallets within the EU framework. Perhaps the government there has a different role than it does in Estonia and other countries, but you're representing a little bit a private initiative to bring some of these digital identity frameworks to the UK. Tell us a little bit about the role that banks are playing, not only in the UK, but other countries, and where do you see this private sector role in digital identity?
Yeah, sure, and thank you for inviting me. It's been a great festival so far. So One ID, we've learned from the Nordics, borrowed the concept of Bank ID, and we've built that in the UK on top of open banking. But it's certified to the UK identity framework. So we have a 1-year-old department now in the UK called the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. They own the ID framework and set of rules, which is going into UK law fairly soon. And we're certified against that open framework for private sector companies. There's about 50 companies on the register. Most of the other companies do ID document scanning and selfie matching to onboard people, which you obviously need to have your document. You need to download an app. It's quite a long process. We use the bank app that everyone already has. About 90% of the UK people use online banking now. That's around 50 million people already have what they need to get through our process just by clicking a button, doing some biometrics, strong customer authentication into their bank app. They consent to share their data with the new third party. So it's about 10 seconds, a really easy process to get through. And it's a really secure process because we layer our security tech on everything the bank's already got. And just in terms of the data, we're not harvesting data, so the data stays with your bank as well. So the bank also protects your data as well. So we think that's quite a secure model.
So it's very similar to what Scandinavia is doing with Bank ID, and you try to grow that in the UK.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. The same kind of model. So distributed data.
And Maris, when we talk about the wallet project, and like you said, Monday there was the first act to enforce it, and now we have member states have time until they actually implement it. I've heard from somewhere that there's been already hundreds of applications for this wallets to start, becoming popular. We're not there yet, but how do you see national identity wallets versus the private sector? And where do you expect the growth to come from these?
So there's many trends in play. So what we focus on in the regulation, what I can say in that context is that we have a strong rooting in the government, kind of assurance of identity, and kind of the trust in the government as issuing the wallets. Obviously, any implementation will be a partnership between governments and private sector companies, kind of doing what they specialize in. Also, the credentials that we're talking about, right? Not everything is government issued. Not everything is regulated. Many of them are, like driving licenses, for instance, but many of them aren't. But the trend overall is, regardless of wallets, we can see a clear trend of improving usability, automation, going mobile. So it's regardless of wallets. So any kind of application identity verification is going clearly in that direction. So that's why kind of we can identify some of the hype around it as well.
And maybe a question about timing. Why now? Why this political will coming from the Commission now? Obviously, some countries like Estonia already had taken a leading role. Scandinavia very advanced. Other countries lagging behind. But why did the Commission decide this is important? Why did the member states decide that this is important now? Was it like coming from the pandemic and understanding the need for digital identities?
I would say many pieces fell together. So the what we call IDAS, the regulation kind of which was the predecessor, it existed before. There was a high time to update it. So there's one, right? Several member states already kind of were moving in the direction and also already providing these kind of wallet apps in Poland, in Portugal, and they were hugely popular, still are, and continue to be. And indeed, the kind of IDAS now wasn't anymore, let's say, like a tech thing or kind of a niche thing, but really the pandemic really kind of raised the importance of like when I'm remote, how can I identify myself? These kind of the problem became acute, right? So that's why also the investment behind it politically and financially.
So, because the panel is beyond plastic, let's talk a little bit about use cases. Where do you see, and I think the history of Estonia with digital identity was really much about finding those use cases where it wasn't just the government issuing this, but there was places where people could go and log in, authenticate, sign documents with this, and that drove adoption. And by comparison, I come from Portugal, we've had the framework, but no one was using it until the pandemic when it started to the use cases were there. So Adrian, from the UK and from what you see at OneID, what are some of the use cases that people start to use your identity mechanism in that market?
Yeah, so there are three key use cases at the moment, one of which is KYC and AML onboarding, so source of electronic ID for KYC. Another one is e-signing, so we partner with DocuSign, Adobe, EID Easy, a number of different signing platforms, so you can do a proper identity check and a signature, so you know who's actually signing the contracts. And they're also doing employment screening, so when you hire someone in the UK, you need to do a criminal records check, you need to check the right to work in the country, so we do all those things as well. And actually, we're a 5-year-old company. We've pivoted now from being a product-led company. We're trying to find product market fit. We've got that now. We're now moved towards being a customer-driven company, and we're partnering with UK banks. And one of those UK banks has a business in the Nordics where they do leasing of property. So it's a customer-driven use case, and we've actually happy to announce that we've connected our UK bank ID to the bank IDs now in Sweden, in Finland, and Norway, to enable customers from any of those countries to be able to sign contracts for that UK business and do that cross-border using their bank IDs. So that's all live now and up and running.
And we're happy to be the ones providing you
exactly,
those connections with EID Easy. Lena, so 10 years of e-residency, a future vision of where this is going. A lot of other countries also started not just on their digital identity journey, but on their local e-residency program. Do you see this as a welcome challenge, or if you look at it from a startup mindset, where do you see the growth opportunities for the e-residency program and the competition coming from other countries, especially in the context of they have their own e-residency programs, but they also have now the digital identity wallets. So what becomes the unique selling point for the e-residency that is tied uniquely to Estonia?
The selling point remains, which is the digital society, digital services of Estonia. So that has not changed. Other countries are, of course, trying to get to that point. We know that there are like hundreds of delegations coming to Estonia to learn from us. But we have that advantage because we've been digital for 30 years. 99% of public services are digital. There are like very many super good examples of public-private cooperation, the implementation-wise. Our banks chose to pick this digital identity model that's secure, and they chose to build their systems on top of that. So they also drove implementation and usage, and also telcos. So I think this is very unique, and it remains as such because it's so much more difficult for other countries to achieve that place. So we see this as an opportunity. We can still offer, so people from the EU with their own wallets coming in, we can still offer them the ecosystem that we've created, the team has created. So we've collected some service providers. We can help them, advisors, tax advisors, legal advisors. Also, we've gathered different funding opportunities available in Estonia, but mostly it's the business environment. It's hassle-free, it's super easy, but it's also relatively cheap compared to other countries. So if we remain, if we keep this, if we safeguard this, I don't see us really like becoming irrelevant. It's rather the opposite.
And if we talk about the digital identity wallet within the EU, there was some resistance to it from some member states, a lot of heated discussions. So if you talk about winners or losers from this, or potentially like opportunities for the audience, you already talked about, onboarding, KYC, for anyone that has a website that they need to onboard their users. Potentially this makes it a lot more affordable and cheaper to get someone's identity. Who do you see as the winners and losers of this project, or what opportunities are opened for those in the audience?
I would say that this identity access management is a growing market, so there's opportunity everywhere, grow across the board, and then kind of open up new possibilities. One of the things, we focus on identification, signing with a wallet, or in the regulatory context that we have. And that's determined by services like what you get access to, right? So as Lina said, Estonia has an excellent set of services. You can do a lot online. This is not exactly the same kind of level in all member states. So as the services get more sophisticated, the value of the identity and access management kind of also increases. But also one of the things that kind of is a untapped market a little bit is these documents or credentials that currently are plastic, or paper. So the wallets provide a platform to digitize these. Yeah.
And Adrian, you were talking about the onboarding process and obviously the video identification mechanisms, companies like Veriff here in Estonia. Do you see that they're going to lose out market share once digital identity and reusable credentials become widespread across the EU?
I do see a lot of other suppliers moving to the wallet model where once I've scanned my passport a few times, I don't want to do that again. I want to store the data somewhere. And that leads to questions of, where's this data being stored? Who's protecting it? Are they certified for any set of rules to say that they're doing that in a safe way? How do you put the customer or the citizen at the center of their data and give them control and visibility about where they're sharing their data, giving them the right to revoke access to that or to shift it from one supplier to another? So the companies or the governments that are supplying those kind of easy, efficient, safe services, I think, will win.
Lina, any thoughts on opportunities or winners and losers from this European initiative?
I think Estonia is actually lagging behind in terms of adopting the wallet or developing it. And the reason is probably because we don't really need it in Estonia.
You already have.
We have all of those signing opportunities. So we, as e-Residency program, we think we can be one of the use cases because this is to open up this opportunity to foreigners from the EU, but also outside of the EU. So through us, people outside of the EU could benefit of the wallet.
Yeah, and I think that remains key, right?
Yeah.
Which is making it easier for people to access not only government service, private services, but now they're able to do it with a reusable identity that they have in their pocket, maybe not in the form of plastic, but in the form of a mobile app that they can start using, and hopefully as well across borders. We're running out of time. I have one quick question, which is EU versus the world, and how does the Commission look at interoperability, namely between EU and the UK?
So from the Commission side, the main interoperability is kind of use case specific, I would say. So we're collaborating quite a lot with our colleagues in DG Move who are dealing with driving license, but other transport-related credentials as well, and it's a big focus for them to work together with the United States, with Australia, and other states like that. But identification is more kind of EU focused, but lots of the new cards or credentials that we don't even know which will be there typically have a third country relationship there as well.
Super.
Yeah.
We're out of time. All I have to do is thank the panelists for this lively discussion, and hopefully we see all these wallets in action and more e-residents benefit from the e-residency program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.